She said divorce like it was a warning, but I heard it like permission. Lauren stood in the hallway mirror at 7:30 on a Saturday evening, tilting her head as she fastened a small gold earring, the kind she only wore when she wanted someone to notice. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and the pot roast I had left warming in the oven. A normal smell for a normal marriage, except nothing about that room felt normal anymore. Her phone sat face up on the entry table, glowing every few seconds with Derek Lawson's name, and each vibration sounded louder than it should have. I was standing by the kitchen doorway with a dish towel over one shoulder, still wearing the gray work shirt I had put on that morning before checking a framing issue at a job site outside Raleigh. My boots were by the back door, mud drying on the soles. My hands smelled faintly of pine lumber and dish soap. I looked like a man who had spent the day keeping things standing, which was exactly what I had done for most of our marriage. Lauren glanced at the phone, then at herself, then at me through the mirror like I was a piece of furniture she had outgrown but had not bothered to move. "Another weekend with him?" I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm, maybe. Calm is what happens when the argument has already been happening inside you for months. She sighed before I even finished the question. That sigh had become a language in our house. It meant I was insecure. It meant I was boring. It meant she had already decided my concern was the problem, not the thing that caused it. "Nathan, please do not start," she said. "Derek is going through a hard time." I looked at the phone again. Friday night drinks. Saturday lunch. Sunday walks. Every weekend had become a hard time for Derek, and somehow I was the unreasonable one for noticing. "He has been going through a hard time since March," I said. "It is November." Lauren turned from the mirror then, one hand on her hip, her camel coat open over a black sweater and jeans that still had the tag crease on them. She looked beautiful in the precise, polished way she used to reserve for anniversaries. Now she wore it to comfort a man she once almost married. "You either trust me or you do not," she said. There it was. The word she used like a locked door. Trust. If I knocked, I was controlling. If I stayed quiet, I was approving. If I hurt, I was weak. I folded the dish towel once, slowly, and set it on the counter. Trust is not the same as pretending something does not bother me. She gave a small laugh, sharp enough to make the hallway feel colder. "You know what? If you do not trust me hanging out with my ex every weekend, maybe we should divorce." The sentence landed between us with the weight of a signed paper. She expected panic. I saw it in her eyes. She expected me to step forward, soften my voice, apologize for making her feel trapped, promise to work on myself. Maybe even tell her to go have fun so I could prove I was not the jealous husband she had been painting in her head. For years, I had trained her to expect that. I kept peace. I repaired the leak. I paid the bill. I swallowed the sentence before it became a fight. But there is a moment when peace stops being patience and becomes self-betrayal. Mine came right there, under the warm hallway light, with her phone buzzing beside my keys. I looked at Lauren for a long second, not at the coat, not at the earrings, not at the practiced irritation on her face, but at the woman who had turned my boundaries into evidence against me. Then I reached into my pocket, took out my truck keys, and placed them on the entry table beside her phone. The metal made a small sound against the wood. Not loud. "Final." "I agree," I said. Lauren blinked once. The color did not leave her face all at once. It drained slowly, like the room had opened a window in winter. "What?" she asked. I slid my wedding ring off my finger. It resisted at the knuckle for half a second, just long enough to remind me how many years it had been there. Then it came free. I placed it beside the keys. "You brought up divorce," I said. "I am accepting it." For the first time that night, Derek's name lit up her phone, and she did not look down. Lauren stared at the ring on the entry table as if it had fallen from the ceiling instead of my hand. The house went so quiet I could hear the low hum of the refrigerator, the soft tick of the oven cooling, and the faint buzz of Derek's message lighting up her phone again. For months, that name had entered our home like an invited guest, walking through dinner, weekends, grocery runs, and quiet Sunday mornings without ever taking off its shoes. Now it sat beside my wedding ring, glowing under the hallway lamp, and Lauren did not know which one to reach for. "Nathan, stop," she said, but her voice did not have the same edge anymore. It had a crack in it, a small one, but I heard it. Contractors hear cracks for a living. You learn which ones are cosmetic and which ones mean the foundation is shifting. I picked up the dish towel again, folded it into a square, and laid it beside the sink because my hands needed something ordinary to do. I am not stopping anything, I said. You suggested divorce. I agreed. She gave another laugh, but this one came out thin, almost lonely. You are seriously going to act like this because I have a friend? I looked at her phone. Derek's name faded to black, then appeared again. A friend who gets every weekend. Her eyes narrowed, grateful to find anger again because anger was easier than fear. You make it sound dirty. I said weekend, I answered. You added the guilt yourself. That landed. I could see it in the way her mouth closed before the next sentence formed. Outside, a car passed slowly through our subdivision, headlights sliding across the front windows and dragging shadows over the walls. We lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Raleigh, the kind with trimmed lawns, basketball hoops in driveways, and neighbors who waved even when they were too busy to talk. It was a good house. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a back deck I had built myself over 2 hot July weekends while Lauren picked stained colors and complained about sawdust. I had thought building a home meant something. I thought if a man kept showing up, paid attention, stayed steady, and gave his wife room to breathe, she would know the difference between freedom and disrespect. But somewhere along the way, Lauren stopped seeing my steadiness as love. She started treating it like something guaranteed. I was upset, she said softer now. People say things. I nodded once. Yes, they do. Then why are you taking it so far? I looked down at the ring. 12 years of marriage could fit into a circle small enough to lose under a couch. That thought should have broken me. Instead, it cleared something. Because this is not one sentence, I said. This is every Friday you told me I was insecure. Every Saturday, you came home smelling like a restaurant you said you did not go to. Every Sunday, you acted like my silence meant permission. Tonight just gave it a name. Lauren's face shifted. Not regret yet. Recognition. There is a difference. Regret asks what it can repair. Recognition only sees what it can no longer deny. Her phone buzzed again. She finally glanced down. Derek, are you coming or what? The words were short, impatient, and almost perfect. Not are you okay? Not did something happen. Just are you coming? Lauren turned the screen down fast, but not before I saw it. I let the silence hold that message between us. She swallowed. I should go clear my head. There it was, the old exit. Leave the room. Leave the question. Leave me standing with the feelings she did not want to answer for. But this time the door did not work the same way. Take your time, I said. I will call Michael Grant Monday morning. Her hand froze on the strap of her purse. Who is Michael Grant? I picked up my keys from beside the ring, then thought better of it and set them back down. I wanted nothing in that moment except to stop performing calm for someone who mistook it for weakness. My attorney, I said. The word changed the hallway. Lauren stood very still, coat half-buttoned, phone face down, purse hanging from one shoulder. Behind her, the mirror reflected both of us. Her dress to leave, me standing in the house I had spent years keeping together. For the first time, we looked like what we had become. 2 people on opposite sides of a decision she never expected me to make. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the hardwood floor and highlighting the faint dust in the air. Nathan Whitaker sat at the kitchen table with a mug of black coffee cooling beside him, hands folded loosely on the surface, staring at the documents laid out before him. Each page was a record of months, even years, of observations, weekend outings, dinner receipts, hotel bookings, and casual messages from Lauren Whitaker, all innocuous on their own but revealing in their pattern. Winston padded around the kitchen, sniffing at the newspaper and pawing at the chair legs as if sensing the tension without understanding it. Nathan allowed himself a slow breath, not rushed, not panicked, but deliberate, letting the calm sink through every muscle in his body. Outside, the street was quiet, the occasional hum of a car passing over asphalt the only sound, blending with the distant rustle of trees in the early morning breeze. He took a moment to recall the early days of their marriage when routine, consistency, and small gestures of care had defined every week. The repairs around the house, the carefully planned meals, the attentiveness to birthdays and anniversaries, all unnoticed now, but forming the foundation he had built for their life together. Lauren appeared in the doorway, her robe loosely tied, hair slightly mussed from a restless night, and phone in hand, eyes scanning the pages Nathan had laid out. "Why are you looking at these?" she asked. voice tentative, trying to mask the anxiety that betrayed her. Nathan's gaze did not falter. "Because patterns matter," he said. "And you created one I need to acknowledge before making any decisions." She shifted from one foot to the other, clutching her coffee mug, realizing that the power dynamics she had assumed were entirely reversed. Derek Lawson's name flashed on her phone again, an alert she ignored for once, her attention fully on the silent weight Nathan had brought into the room. He pushed one of the folders toward her, letting the paper slide slowly across the table, its presence commanding attention without a word. Lauren's eyes widened slightly as she recognized the implications, the careful documentation, the subtle yet comprehensive record of her weekends, the precision with which he had noted the boundaries she repeatedly tested. Nathan did not raise his voice. He did not accuse. He did not threaten. He merely existed in the room with quiet authority, each measured movement, each calm word, each deliberate gesture serving as a reminder that respect and trust were not privileges to be taken lightly. Lauren finally spoke again, softer, hesitant. I did not realize." Nathan nodded once, acknowledging her admission without passing judgment. "I have watched, and I have waited," he said. "Waiting is not weakness. Observing is not consent. This is all I will say for now." The morning light shifted slightly, illuminating the documents and Nathan's steady posture, highlighting the distance between intention and assumption, between words spoken carelessly and actions taken thoughtfully. Winston padded up to Nathan, nudged his hand, and Nathan absent-mindedly reached down to ruffle his fur, the small act grounding him in the moment. Lauren remained near the doorway, her phone still in hand but face down on the counter, understanding for the first time that Nathan's silence and patience were not passivity but preparation. The quiet stretched, not awkward, not tense, but full of potential, a moment of suspended consequence that would shape the rest of their day, and perhaps the weeks to come. Nathan sipped the cooling coffee, considered the emails and notes he would send later, the legal consultation scheduled for mid-morning, the calm yet irreversible steps he had set in motion, knowing that the first wave of clarity had already begun to reach Lauren, who now stood, uncertain, at the threshold of her own understanding. By 10:45, Nathan was sitting in the parking lot outside a small law office in downtown Raleigh, watching morning traffic slide past the windshield in slow silver lines. The building was not dramatic, just red brick, clean windows, and a brass sign beside the door that read Grant Family Law. That suited him. He was not there for a performance. He was there for facts. The folder rested on the passenger seat, thick enough to tell a story without raising its voice. Receipts from weekend restaurants. Bank statements showing withdrawals from the joint account. Screenshots of messages Lauren had sent to her sister, saying Nathan was too safe to ever walk away. A hotel spa charge from a Saturday when Lauren had told him she was helping Derek organize his apartment after the divorce. None of it proved some grand scandal by itself. That was the point. Nathan was not trying to turn pain into theater. He was protecting the truth before someone else rewrote it. He stepped out of the truck, adjusted his jacket, and walked inside. The waiting room smelled like coffee and printer paper, and an older woman behind the desk gave him the tired kindness of someone who had seen good people arrive on bad days. Michael Grant came out at 11 sharp, a tall man in his 50s with silver hair, a navy suit, and eyes that did not waste motion. He shook Nathan's hand once and led him into an office lined with books, framed degrees, and photographs of mountains in western North Carolina. "Tell me what happened," Michael said. Nathan sat down, placed the folder on the desk, and started at the beginning, not with the argument, but with the pattern. He talked about Fridays that turned into Saturdays, Saturdays that turned into whole weekends, the way Lauren used the word trust like a shield, the way any reasonable boundary became an accusation against him. He talked about Derek Lawson, recently divorced, always in need, always available, always somehow more important than the marriage Nathan came home to every night. Michael did not interrupt. He took notes in clean, straight lines. When Nathan finished, he opened the folder and slid the first stack across the desk. Michael reviewed the papers slowly, not with shock, but with recognition. "You have been careful," he said. Nathan looked toward the window, where sunlight hit the edge of the blinds. "I had to be. I knew if I reacted emotionally, she would make the reaction the whole story." Michael nodded. "That happens more than people think." The sentence landed with a strange comfort. Not because it made anything better, but because it made Nathan feel less crazy. For months, he had questioned himself. Maybe he was insecure. Maybe he was old-fashioned. Maybe asking your wife not to spend every weekend with her former boyfriend made you controlling in some new world he did not understand. But sitting there, under the steady eyes of a lawyer who spoke in documents instead of drama, Nathan finally heard the truth in plain language. Boundaries were not control. Marriage was not a courtroom where one person had to prove pain was admissible. Michael leaned back slightly. Here is what we can do today. We can prepare a formal separation notice. We can document your financial position. We can advise you on separating direct deposits and limiting joint account use to necessary household expenses. We do not hide money. We do not play games. We make the record clean. Nathan let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Clean. That was the word he wanted. Not cruel. Not loud. Clean. Across town, Lauren was still at home, staring at the same kitchen table where he had left the ring the night before. Derek had called twice. She had not answered. That would not last, Nathan knew. People run toward the door they think is still open. But Derek was about to teach her something Nathan no longer had the strength to explain. A man who enjoys being the escape does not always want to become the destination. Michael gathered the documents into a neat stack. Are you certain you want to move forward? Nathan thought of the hallway mirror, the buzzing phone, the way Lauren had looked more offended by his pain than by her own choices. He thought of every quiet night he had stayed awake beside someone who was already halfway elsewhere. Then he nodded. Yes, he said. I am done betraying myself to keep being trusted by someone who stopped protecting us. Michael wrote one final note. Outside, a church bell marked the hour, clear and distant. Nathan looked at his bare left hand resting on the arm of the chair. The skin beneath the ring was pale, but it was free. By early afternoon, Lauren Whitaker was pacing her boutique on Queen Street, the polished wooden floor reflecting the light from the large front windows as her heels clicked softly against it. The boutique smelled faintly of fresh linens and coffee from the small corner machine she had insisted on keeping, though Nathan rarely drank it. The phone on the counter buzzed again with Derek Lawson's name, but she did not pick it up. For the first time in weeks, her attention was fixed on the reality she had been avoiding. The weekend trips, the hotel dinners, the brunches she had described as helping a friend, now lined up like evidence in her mind. Every text, every explanation, every hurried conversation became part of a pattern she could no longer deny. The tables she had carefully arranged with velvet displays and new arrivals felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were pressing in, reminding her of the boundaries she had ignored. She ran her hand along the counter, thinking of Nathan Whitaker, who had spent years maintaining the household and the life they shared without complaint, without fanfare, without claiming credit. The contrast between his silent, steady presence and her own frantic, reactive energy made the past weeks feel surreal. She remembered Fridays when she left early to meet Derek, Saturdays when she returned later than expected, Sundays when she claimed errands that were really meetings or lunches or long walks with him. The responsibility she had placed on Nathan to ignore the signs, to bend to her version of trust, suddenly seemed cruel in hindsight. She glanced at the street outside, seeing neighbors walking dogs, children riding bicycles, and the city moving in its usual rhythm as if her boutique were a bubble out of sync with the world. The boutique phone buzzed again, this time a text from Michael Grant, Nathan's attorney. The separation documents had been filed, and the process had begun. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the phone, reading the words that confirmed Nathan had acted quietly but decisively, without spectacle, without malice, just protecting the boundaries she had disregarded. She thought of Derek again, expecting comfort or support, but the reality was clear. He had no place in the life Nathan had quietly safeguarded. Each moment she had assumed independence had been an illusion built on his patience and foresight. Lauren sank onto the edge of the velvet display chair, looking at the receipts, schedules, and bank statements that Nathan had meticulously documented, understanding for the first time that every weekend, every excuse, every small lie had been tracked, cataloged, and would serve as the evidence of a pattern she could no longer manipulate. Winston, Nathan's dog, patted quietly at her feet, sensing the tension, offering only presence. The reality that Nathan was no longer bound by the need to justify himself, to forgive her oversights, or to accept her manipulation hit her fully. She had used the word trust to shield her actions, to excuse her absences, but now that shield had become a mirror, reflecting the choices she had made and the consequences that followed. The boutique seemed both familiar and alien, every corner a reminder of what she thought she controlled and what she never truly understood. She held the phone, staring at the screen, Derek's name still flashing, realizing that no call, no explanation, no promise could undo the careful architecture Nathan had built to protect himself and his life. The sunlight shifted slightly, casting long shadows across the racks and shelves, and Lauren understood that for the first time in months, the power she thought she had was gone, and she had no one to blame but herself. At 3:20 that afternoon, Lauren finally answered Derek's call, not because she wanted to hear his voice, but because silence had started feeling worse than any answer he could give. She stood behind the counter of her boutique with one hand pressed flat against the glass display case, staring at her own reflection between folded sweaters and gold jewelry stands. "Where have you been?" Derek asked, irritated before he was concerned. That was the first thing she noticed. Not warmth, not worry, irritation. "Nathan knows," she said. The line went quiet for half a second, just long enough for the truth to show its face. "Knows what?" Derek asked. Lauren closed her eyes. "Do not do that." Outside, people moved along the sidewalk with shopping bags and coffee cups, ordinary lives passing by a window that suddenly felt like glass between two worlds. Derek exhaled hard. "Lauren, I told you from the beginning, I cannot be dragged into some messy marriage situation." She opened her eyes slowly. The boutique lights hummed overhead. A customer had left a blue scarf half unfolded near the front table, and for some reason Lauren could not stop looking at it. "You asked me to come every weekend," she said. "You said I was the only person who understood you. Because you are a good friend," Derek said too quickly. There it was. Friend. The word he had polished and handed back to her like a cheap gift. For months, she had used that same word against Nathan, pushing it into his face whenever he questioned her, making it sound innocent enough to make his discomfort look ugly. Now Derek used it on her, and it felt thin enough to tear. "Nathan agreed to the divorce," she said, softer this time. She expected something. A pause filled with hope. A confession. A promise that this had all meant more than late lunches and long conversations in parking lots. Instead, Derek made a small sound, almost a nervous laugh. "Wait, you actually said that to him?" Lauren's grip tightened on the display case. "I was upset. Lauren, I am still dealing with my own divorce. I have legal bills, support payments, and a landlord who wants 2 months back rent by Friday. I am not in a position to start anything serious." The words did not hit her all at once. They arrived one by one, each sentence pulling a thread from the story she had told herself. Derek had not been waiting for her. He had not been building a future in the background. He had been lonely, embarrassed, and hungry for attention, and she had mistaken being needed for being chosen. "So what was I?" she asked. Derek sighed, and the sigh told her the answer before he did. "You were someone I could talk to." The room seemed to lose color. Lauren looked toward the back office where the framed photograph from her grand opening still hung on the wall. Nathan stood in the picture at the edge of the ribbon, half out of the frame, smiling like a man proud to be invisible if it meant his wife could shine. She had cropped him out of the version she posted online. She remembered that now with a sharpness that made her stomach turn. "I burned my marriage for someone I could talk to," she whispered. Derek did not answer right away. Then he said, "I never asked you to burn anything." It was not cruel. That was what made it worse. It was practical, convenient. The kind of sentence a man uses when he wants all the comfort of closeness and none of the cost. Lauren ended the call without saying goodbye. The screen went dark, and in that dark glass, she saw herself clearly for the first time all day. A woman who had treated her husband's patience like a cage and another man's neediness like a door. At 4 o'clock, Michael Grant's office sent another email, this one addressed formally to both parties. The separation notice was clean, measured, and impossible to twist. Joint account access would be limited to household expenses. Direct deposits would be separated. Records of discretionary spending would be preserved. No accusation. No insult. Just structure. Lauren read it twice, then a third time, searching for a crack she could push through. There was none. Nathan had not built a wall in anger. He had built an exit in silence, board by board, document by document, while she spent every weekend proving why he needed one. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Nathan. One message. I will be home at 7 to collect some clothes. Please have Derek stop contacting me. Lauren stared at the words until they blurred. He did not ask where she was. He did not ask if she was sorry. He did not ask if she had chosen. That was when she understood the part that hurt the most. Nathan was no longer waiting to be picked. At 6:58 that evening, Nathan's truck rolled into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the garage door, the front porch, and the flower beds he had mulched back in April, while Lauren stood outside with iced tea and told him the yard finally looked like something from a magazine. She watched from the living room window with her arms folded tight across her chest, feeling the sound of the engine more than hearing it. For years, that sound meant he was home. It meant dinner could start, bills had been paid, the trash bins would be rolled back from the curb, the loose hinge would be fixed, the strange noise in the attic would be checked. It meant the steady part of her life had returned. Tonight, it sounded like a clock running out. Nathan stepped out of the truck carrying an empty duffel bag. He wore the same jacket from the law office, his sleeves rolled once at the wrists, his face calm in a way that made Lauren's rehearsed apology dissolve before he reached the door. She had spent the last hour trying to decide what version of herself to present. Angry wife, hurt wife, confused wife, sorry wife. But when he walked in and placed his keys on the entry table beside the ring he had left there, every version felt fake. I need about 15 minutes, he said. Not cold, not warm, just factual. Lauren followed him down the hallway, staying a few steps behind as if distance might protect her from the sight of him opening drawers. Nathan, can we talk? He entered the bedroom and set the duffel on the bench at the foot of the bed. We can speak through Michael for anything legal. That is not what I mean. He opened the closet and took 3 work shirts from the left side. The side she used to complain made the closet look too practical. I know what you mean. She stood near the doorway, looking at the bed they had shared, the framed beach photo above the dresser, the laundry basket with his socks folded on top, because she had finally done something ordinary that afternoon just to feel less useless. Derek was not what you think, she said. Nathan paused for half a second, then folded one shirt into the duffel. He was exactly what I think. A distraction you protected more than your marriage. Lauren swallowed. He said he is not ready for anything serious. Nathan did not look surprised. That hurt more than if he had. I know. How could you know? He turned then, not angry, just tired in a place deeper than sleep. Because men like Derek do not want responsibility. They want reflection. They want someone looking at them like they still matter without asking them to become better. The room went still. Lauren looked toward the dresser where his watch used to sit every night. The spot was empty now. Small absences are sometimes louder than packed suitcases. I made a mistake, she said. The words came out thin, but they were real. Nathan nodded once. Yes. She waited for more. For a lecture. For a softened expression. For the old Nathan who would take one honest sentence and build a bridge out of it. He only turned back to the closet. Lauren's voice shook despite her effort to hold it steady. So that is it. 12 years, and you just leave. He placed a pair of jeans into the duffel, zipped one pocket, and finally faced her fully. No, Lauren. 12 years is why I stayed as long as I did. Last night is why I stopped. The sentence landed gently, which somehow made it heavier. Downstairs, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Derek again, probably trying to clean up whatever inconvenience her crisis had caused him. Nathan heard it too. His eyes moved toward the hallway, then back to her. You should answer that, he said. No, Lauren said quickly. I do not want to. That is not the same as choosing me. Her face tightened, not from anger this time, but from the recognition of something she could not argue with. Nathan picked up the duffel and walked past her toward the hallway. At the entry table, he stopped, looked at his wedding ring, and placed it inside the envelope from Michael Grant's office. Lauren watched the movement like someone watching a door lock from the outside. I trusted you, he said quietly, until trusting you meant abandoning myself. Then he opened the front door. The evening air moved into the house, cool and clean after a long day. Nathan stepped onto the porch, and Lauren stood behind him in the doorway, surrounded by the life he had kept steady, realizing the cruelest part was not that he was leaving. It was that he was leaving calmly, because the fight inside him had ended before she ever thought to join it. By 8:15, Nathan was sitting in a quiet hotel room off Glenwood Avenue, the duffel bag open on the chair, his work shirts folded in a way that made the place feel more temporary than it already was. Outside the window, Raleigh moved on without him, headlights sliding along the wet pavement, restaurant signs glowing red and gold, people walking into Saturday night with laughter tucked under their coats. He had ordered no dinner. Hunger felt like something that belonged to another man. He sat at the small desk with a paper cup of coffee from the lobby and opened the email from Michael Grant again, not because he needed to read it, but because clean words had a way of keeping a man steady when feelings tried to drag him backward. Formal separation notice, financial disclosures, joint account limitations, communication through counsel. The language was dry, but to Nathan it sounded like oxygen. For years, emotion had been the courtroom where Lauren always moved the evidence. If he felt hurt, she called him insecure. If he asked questions, she called him controlling. If he stayed quiet, she called that trust. Now there was paper. Paper did not sigh. Paper did not roll its eyes. Paper did not leave every weekend and come back calling your pain a problem. At 8:30, Connor Hayes called. Nathan watched his best friend's name glow on the screen for 3 rings before answering. Connor did not waste time with false cheer. "You somewhere safe?" he asked. Nathan looked around the hotel room, the beige walls, the stiff curtains, the Bible in the drawer, the plastic ice bucket by the television. "I am somewhere quiet," he said. "That counts." Connor was silent for a moment. He had known Nathan since trade school, back when both of them had more ambition than money and ate gas station sandwiches for lunch beside job sites. He had watched Nathan marry Lauren, buy the house, build the deck, and keep smiling through small humiliations that nobody else noticed. "She called my wife," Connor said. Nathan closed his eyes. Of course she had. When control leaves the room, people start checking other doors. "What did she say?" "That you blindsided her." Nathan let out a tired breath that almost became a laugh. "I accepted the words she handed me." Connor said nothing for a few seconds, then spoke carefully. "My wife asked her if she had been spending every weekend with Derek." Lauren got quiet. Nathan looked down at his bare left hand. The pale band of skin was still there, a ghost mark of a promise that had outlasted the promise itself. "That sounds like Lauren." "She is scared," Connor said. "Maybe. But scared is not the same as sorry." The sentence surprised Nathan when it came out. It was not bitter. It was clear. That was the strange mercy of leaving with your dignity intact. The world did not become easier, but it became less blurry. Across town, Lauren sat alone at the kitchen table, the same table where Nathan had left his ring the night before. Derek had stopped calling after she sent one message saying Nathan was gone. He did not offer to come over. He did not ask if she needed anything. He replied with one line, "I think we should give this space." Space. The word glowed on her phone like a hallway with no doors. She stared at it until the screen dimmed, then touched it awake again, as if a different sentence might appear if she gave it enough chances. Nothing changed. The pot roast still sat in the refrigerator, wrapped in foil. Nathan's boots were gone from the back door. His work jacket was gone from the hook. The house had not emptied. Not really, but the useful parts of love had been quietly removed, and every room seemed to notice. Lauren walked into the bedroom and opened his side of the closet. Empty hangers leaned together with a soft plastic sound. She reached toward them, then stopped, her hand hovering in the stale air. There are moments when regret does not arrive as tears. Sometimes it arrives as storage space. A shelf with nothing on it. A toothbrush missing from a cup. A charging cable gone from the nightstand. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the framed beach photo above the dresser. Nathan had been smiling in that picture, sunburned across the nose, one arm around her shoulders, the Atlantic behind them bright and endless. She remembered complaining that day because the wind had ruined her hair. He had bought her a hat from a boardwalk shop and told her she looked beautiful anyway. She had forgotten that until now. At the hotel, Nathan ended the call with Connor and sat in the quiet for a long moment. Then he took out a notepad from the desk drawer and wrote one sentence. Not for Lauren, not for the lawyer, not for anyone else. "I can miss someone and still choose myself." He set the pen down, turned off the lamp, and let the darkness settle gently around him. For the first time in months, the silence did not feel like punishment. It felt like a room he could finally breathe in. By Monday morning, The house outside Raleigh looked exactly the same from the street, but inside, Lauren moved through it like someone visiting a museum of her own mistakes. Nathan's side of the closet was still half empty. His boots were still gone from the back door. The entry table still held the envelope from Michael Grant's office, and beside it, the faint circular mark where his ring had rested for one night before being sealed away with the papers. Lauren had called Derek once on Sunday. He did not answer. He sent a message 2 hours later saying he needed to focus on getting his own life together. That was when the last piece finally settled into place. Derek had wanted her attention, not her future. He had wanted her sympathy, not her responsibility. He had wanted her weekends, not her Mondays. And Nathan had been there for all of it, not begging, not chasing, just watching the truth collect itself one choice at a time. Across town, Nathan stood at a construction site with Connor Hayes, hard hat on, blueprint in hand, morning sun cutting across the half-finished frame of a new home. The air smelled like sawdust, wet clay, and coffee from a paper cup balanced on a stack of lumber. Work had always given him something honest. A crooked beam could not gaslight you. A bad measurement did not call you insecure. A foundation either held, or it did not. Connor stood beside him, quiet for a while, then said, "You look different." Nathan looked down at the plans. "I slept." It was not the whole truth, but it was enough. The nights still hurt. Of course they did. 12 years do not disappear because a man signs a document or checks into a hotel. He still missed the early version of Lauren sometimes. The woman who danced barefoot in the kitchen. The woman who once cried because he surprised her with a weekend in Asheville. The woman who used to call him home before he ever had to ask where she was. But missing the past is not proof that the present deserves another chance. Some memories are not invitations. Some are just evidence that something beautiful used to live where the silence is now. At noon, Michael Grant called to confirm that Lauren had received the formal timeline and financial instructions. Nathan listened, answered clearly, and felt the old urge to ask how she sounded rise in his chest. He let it pass. That was new. For years, his peace had depended on Lauren's mood. If she was distant, he adjusted. If she was irritated, he apologized. If she crossed a line, he moved the line and called it love. Now the line stayed where it was. Clean. Visible. His. That evening, Lauren found the pot roast still wrapped in foil and threw it away without heating it. She stood over the trash can longer than necessary, staring at the meal Nathan had made on the night she chose to leave again. Her phone stayed quiet. No Derek. No Nathan. Just the refrigerator hum and the soft sound of the house existing without anyone trying to hold it together for her. She walked to the hallway mirror, the same mirror where she had fastened her earring before everything changed, and looked at herself until the performance fell away. She was not abandoned. She was answered. That was the part she would have to live with. Nathan did not win by punishing her. He won by refusing to keep losing himself. And maybe that is the hardest kind of ending to argue with, because there is no slammed door, no cruel speech, no final scene big enough to blame. There is only a man who finally understands that trust is not the same as tolerance, patience is not the same as permission, and love should never require you to betray yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. So what do you think? Did Nathan walk away too soon? Or did he finally do what he should have done long before that Saturday night? Think about the people who call your boundaries insecurity, and ask yourself what they gain when you stop protecting them. And if stories like this remind you that quiet strength still matters, stay with this channel, because some lessons are worth hearing before life teaches them the hard way.